Okay, back again with Biology 2401, as simple as possible, as soon as possible. Anatomy and physiology, organization of the nervous system. Here's our third little blip of a video. Remember that we were talking about how the nervous system could be organized to make it easier to try to identify. So we talked about input, processing, and output. We talked about the effectors that were going to be controlled. And we said that the autonomic nervous system can be divided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Well, let's look at this little mnemonic device right here and see if we can sort of find a pattern that helps you remember these things a little more easily. In this picture right here, what it is, I drew a letter P, and then I drew a face on it. Here's an S, kind of radical, and I drew a face on that. All of this is trying to get me to remember to tell you a few things. In the parasympathetic nervous system, it's dominated by two kinds of emotions, and that would be depression and apathy. So there's apathy right there, and there's depression on the other side. With the sympathetic nervous system, it's got two general emotions, and that would be things such as anger and happiness or excitement. So there are some emotions that are commonly associated with sympathetic and parasympathetic, but it's not absolute. Here's some other things that are commonly associated with the two. The parasympathetic tends to gather and conserve energy. The sympathetic tends to use a lot of energy. When we look at individual structures inside your body and how they respond, here's a quick list. Under parasympathetic innervation, brain functions tend to be reduced. Under sympathetic, brain functions tend to be increased. So here you're more alert. Here you're less alert. Think about those emotions again. Depression and apathy, not being able to think or think clearly. And then when it comes to anger and happiness, oh, you can think a lot, even though they may get very confused because you're thinking too much. Let's go to secretions. It turns out that tears, nasal secretions, saliva, and digestive secretions are associated with the parasympathetic innervation, and sweat is associated with the sympathetic innervation. So therefore here you have watery eyes, you have a runny nose, you drool, and your digestive system is ready to work for you. Over here, you sweat and you get dry mouth. And oh, by the way, dry hands too. Over here, we're talking about pupils of the eyes. They tend to constrict. Under parasympathetic, get small. Over here, they tend to expand. This right here, by the way, makes the whole world look kind of fuzzy. You're opening it up to allow more light in, but sometimes it can interfere with your ability to focus. So sometimes you're so angry or so happy you can't see straight. So angry, so happy, you can't think straight. All right, next thing over here, heart rate. Heart rate tends to go down under parasympathetic innervation, tends to go up under sympathetic. Respiratory rate tends to go down under parasympathetic. Respiratory rate tends to go up under sympathetic. Digestive functions tend to increase under parasympathetic and they decrease under sympathetic. Stop and think about it. Sometimes a person is so angry or so happy, they get butterflies in their stomach, get an upset stomach. Or sometimes when people are apathetic or depressed, all they really want to do is eat. Let's move on down a little bit. Down here we're talking about urinary bladder. It turns out that under parasympathetic innervation, sphincters tend to relax and the person is perhaps thinking a lot about urinating, going to the bathroom all the time. Over here, they tend to constrict. So the silly little story is, let's say you're going to take the kids to Six Flags, and you announce so you're going to Six Flags and everybody needs to go to the bathroom, get something to eat, and then get in the car. It's going to take an hour to get there. Well, under sympathetic right here, if the kids are all excited, they can't go to the bathroom because their sphincters are all closed up, so they think they don't need to. And they're not hungry at the moment because they're so excited. Well, if you had put the kids in the car before you told them, or excuse me, if you didn't tell them, and then suggest that they go to the bathroom and get something to eat, they could have done that before they got excited. But if they were excited first, they couldn't do these two things. So what you don't do is you don't tell them you're going to Six Flags, put them inside the car. They won't be able to go to the bathroom before they go. They're not hungry before they go. But as soon as they get bored driving after a few minutes, they'll have to go to the bathroom and they'll get hungry. So straighten that story out if you can figure it out. Anyway, some other things. It turns out that under parasympathetic innervation, blood flow to your skin tends to increase, so your skin temperatures tend to warm up. Under sympathetic, blood flow to your skin tends to decrease, and you tend to have cold feet and cold hands. By the way, if you're sweating and you have cold feet and cold hands, you got cold, clammy feet, cold, clammy hands. Two things that might be associated with emotions such as being very, very happy or very, very angry. Over here, parasympathetic is basically getting you ready to rest and relax, which includes going to sleep. So brain functions tend to slow down, respiratory rate slows down, heart rate slows down. You get a warm feeling in your skin, and these are things that are getting you ready to fall asleep. Some people even start drooling when they're about to go to sleep. So down here with the parasympathetic, we're talking about placid and pathos. Pathos, sad, apathetic. Over here, we're talking about stress and speed and sweat. So getting those S's together, getting those P's together right there. Now, these are all sending signals to some of the same organs, such as the heart's getting a sympathetic and the parasympathetic, some of the lungs, some of the digestive organs. So that's called dual innervation. And again, what we're doing right here is we're sending signals to parts of the body that you cannot directly consciously control. So these are visceral motor signals that are going out. And because the sympathetic and parasympathetic tend to undo each other's actions, this is called dynamic antagonism. So between the two, you're revving up and slowing down the heart. Silly analogy would be that if you're driving in a traffic jam and you're just slowly inching forward, you might have your foot on the gas pedal and the other foot on the brake. So you can speed up to catch a spot and then slow down real quick before you bump into anybody. Okay, so a quick comparison there between sympathetic and parasympathetic.